Hello everyone and welcome for the astrology capsules of December 2018. Now December is the last month of the year and it's always a time to start thinking about everything that happened during the year and kind of draw some conclusions out of it. So it's a very important month where we really draw out all the experience, the fruit, but the spiritual fruit of our year. So it's a very nice month to work with. So I really do invite everyone to do this work of thinking of everything that happened during the year and just being very thankful, and drawing the conclusions of a full year is a quite interesting activity to do, a very good exercise. So let's do just a brief recap on last month, because something very special that I didn't really think about last month, so I didn't mention it. But we're still right now in November, as I'm talking in the capsule right now. Yeah, what happened is, I mentioned last month that 2 previous years were 2 years where Jupiter was very involved with Pluto, because there was this square of Jupiter and Pluto 2 years ago, and Uranus also on the January 1st, 2017 also entered into this square, and it kind of lasts for about a year, and then Jupiter did transit in Scorpio, so it was connected to Pluto and then in Scorpio for a year. So 2 years of connecting Jupiter with Pluto or Scorpio energy, so very connected with power. And something very special happened when this square with Jupiter and Pluto started to show itself a little bit. And it's the election of Donald Trump in the States. And it's very interesting how this square, Jupiter and Pluto square, is connected to this election of Donald Trump and all the work that happened then after in Scorpio as well. And I could briefly say that it's connected with all the lies that he showed to the public, because Uranus was also part of this square, right? And it's kind of obvious that power, how we manage power today, so Jupiter in square with Pluto, how we manage power today is just filled with lies. It's crazy what happened. And the entire world is looking and seeing and realizing how big it is. The United States is such a huge country, it's very powerful, and their president is just doing all those lies and everything, and it's so obvious. I think it's just a perfect example to show how during those last 2 years we were working at understanding how we deal with power, where we are at with this dealing with power, and it's very, very unique. And what is so special is I mentioned last month that there would be some kind of exam on the new moon of November, and actually I didn't think of it at that time, but this new moon was just a few hours after the midterms in the States. And for me, it was amazing because this exam was connected to the last moments where Jupiter was in Scorpio. So finally, it came out of it right after this exam, this new moon of November, and it went into Sagittarius. But at this last moment where Jupiter was still in Scorpio, there was those midterms in the States. So I was like, wow, isn't it amazing to see how the stars work with us so that we still think about this energy of basically Donald Trump and everything that he brought and everything he's doing. And it's amazing that still now it was very tied, and it's so special. So I really do invite you to understand the connection between this Jupiter and Scorpio and the square of Jupiter with Pluto and Uranus to see how it is connected with this reality. And also, some kind of good news, I would say, is that since Jupiter just entered into Sagittarius, things are changing. Right after those midterms, things are actually changing. Because now Jupiter is not in Scorpio anymore, it entered into the world of Sagittarius, and more clarity is coming to our mind, more clarity is coming to us. And the goal is not anymore to see how crooked all this is, all this power issue is. Now we know, we've seen it enough. And now the goal is to bring clarity, to do something, to at least to clarify things in our mind. And this is another step for the planet. So it's very different. And it's the same thing in our personal lives. Those last 2 years have been really intense. Us dealing with the intensity of our inner power. But in the same time, when we deal with this and we see how, how limited we are with dealing with our inner power, it creates some kind of foggy area in our mind, in our subconsciousness. Actually, we're not so sure of what we can do, how much we can do, because we know I'm quite limited into what I can do, and that's what we felt those last 2 years. Now it's quite different. Now it's time to just clear all this up and see things without all that fog in our mind. And the new moon of December is actually saying this, shouting this really strongly, because there will be a square between the conjunction of Sun and Moon, which creates the new moon, and which is in Sagittarius, right in the middle of Sagittarius, at 15 degrees in Sagittarius. And this will create a square with the conjunction of Mars and Neptune in Pisces. And Mars and Neptune is in Pisces. It's such a foggy mix. It's so difficult to see clearly, because we have our will, Mars, connected with Neptune, which is ruling Pisces and which has this huge ability for intuition. But in the meantime, it creates something too vast for Mars. And Mars, if we connect it with the metal that it is, Mars is connected with iron. And iron, if you bring it into a foggy area with a lot of moisture and everything, it will actually rust. So it creates some kind of rust. It creates something foggy. It creates something a bit weak, very difficult to have a clear will. And it's a little bit like our will is used so much to those last 2 years, where we were in doubt with how we deal with power and so on. It's like our will is damaged a little bit by it, rusted. So now the conjunction of Sun and Moon are clearing up the fog and drying out all this our Mars, actually our will, which was stuck into some kind of doubt from our subconsciousness. So this aspect is very strong, happening on December 7th. And when I say December 7th, it's also a full period of time around it, let's say 2 weeks before and after, about that, because this is an inner work, and it doesn't happen all of a sudden, Of course, the exact aspect will be just one fraction of a moment, a very precise moment, but the real work we're doing with it lasts for more time. So it's at least 2 weeks, let's say, before and after, where we can really feel this work happening of clearing up those fogs. You might even actually feeling it right now, because it can start very early. As soon as we're a bit aware of it and we know it's coming, already things in us start to change. It's a little bit like the sunrise. When we see, the first light of the coming sunrise, already the birds are shouting and life is there already. So same things within ourselves. As soon as we know, this aspect, not only know, but we feel, and subconsciously we feel that, that energy will be happening, life in us starts churning around and moving and becoming more alive, and it's already there. So you might even feel it right away, that we're clearing up that fog so that we can dry out our poor wheel that was, lost in the middle of the sea, swimming, trying to get out of it forever, and he's soaked and it was difficult, and now we're gonna dry it and it's gonna get better and better. So basically that square is a square. So yes, there's tension, but tension come from the fact that our will is there kind of in a difficult time because of all that fog coming from this dealing with our subconscious, with the power issues that we dealt with for the last 2 years. So that's very strong. And then if we move ahead towards the full moon of December, we see that, remember, Saturn was following the full moon for about a year, well, entire 2018, and then in September it switched and now Uranus is following the full moons. Remember that? We talked about it a few months ago. And so now, of course, Uranus is still following the full moon. So this time it's making a trine and a sextile. So a trine with the sun that will be at 0 degree Capricorn, and Uranus is at 28 degree Aries. And then it's going to create a sextile with the moon at 0 degree Cancer, of course, because sun and moon are always in opposition during a full moon. So again, Uranus is having some influence over the full moon, and the type of influence it's giving is quite special, because the sun, where it is placed at 0 degree Capricorn, is actually the exact degree for the winter solstice. So yeah, because winter solstice is happening at the moment where the sun enters Capricorn at 0, 0, 0 degree Capricorn. At that exact place, it is the winter solstice. So the sun will be at 0 degree Capricorns. So that trine is happening at that very moment. So this full moon is happening at winter solstice. That gives a special strength to the winter solstice. Something else is giving a special strength to the winter solstice. Is the sign of Capricorn will be filled with 3 planets, very specific. The sun, we already mentioned, at 0 degree Capricorn. Then Saturn at 10 degree Capricorn, and then Pluto at 20 degree Capricorn. Those three degrees, 0, 10, and 20, are the beginning of the 3 different decants of the sign of Capricorn. So there's something new starting on the 3 different levels, on the 3 planes of the sign of Capricorn. And Uranus still in Aries, and it's unusual to have a trine with the sign of Capricorn and Aries. Usually a trine with Capricorn would be in Taurus, of course, same element. But that time, the sun being at the very beginning of the sign of Capricorn and Uranus at the very end of the sign of Aries, they still form a trine, but they're not in the proper usual sign, let's say. So Aries has such a strong impact to start something, to generate life, to start the germination of things, because of course the spring equinox is happening also when the sun enters the sign of Aries. So, and of course spring is that moment where life is just sprouting everywhere and starting everywhere and growing everywhere. So that's very interesting how Uranus and Aries will be actually pushing this new start of life in Capricorn at the 3 different levels, at the 3 different decants, with the sun at 0 degree Capricorn, Saturn at 10 degree Capricorn, and then Pluto at 20 degree Capricorn. That's very, very interesting how something new will be sprouting, and it's connected, of course, with the winter solstice, which is the beginning of the longer days, where, of course, light and the nights were growing till winter solstice, and then the days will be growing and the nights will be shortening a little bit slowly. So it's kind of the victory of light. Finally, light will be growing again at that moment. So it's connected to that sense of something new is being born. And of course, at Christmas, we think about the nativity of Christ, of Jesus, but it's very connected with Christ and how we can actually have ourselves this connection with this new life coming, but it's something very deep inside. It's something within ourselves. It's our inner connection with Christ. So it's something very, very strong, a new beginning that is starting with this trine of Sun to Uranus and then sextile with the moon. So very, very strong. The moon is a full moon in Cancer at 0 degrees, so it's just offering all its energies, all our energy from our psyche are just all offered to this new beginning of a spiritual life, I would say. So there's a very nice gift happening there. There's another aspect on the full moon of December, which is another square with Neptune. Just like we had the new moon, but it's not sun and moon anymore there forming the square. It's also happening in Sagittarius. It is Jupiter at 9 degrees and Mercury at 10 degrees Sagittarius. So it's not Sun and Moon anymore, but it is connected with Mercury and Jupiter, which is the teacher and the student, which is our ability to follow, to understand, and to follow some kind of teaching, to follow a certain philosophy. And this will be facing some illusions again with the square with Neptune and Pisces. So we'll be clearing up some of those illusions. How? Because we're very used to follow, even our mind, to follow those big illusions that were connected with for those last 2 years. So this also is clearing up what we want to follow in terms of philosophy. There's something very special happening at this new full moon, at this full moon of December, because also philosophically we'll be able to choose another branch, we'll be able to choose something new, we'll be able to understand better the teaching that we follow. We'll be able to really make a change on what we're following in terms of principle. And that's very, very key for this full moon of December. Very connected with this new beginning in Capricorn we're just talking about. And then there's another aspect. It's a trine with Venus in Scorpio and this famous Neptune that was having all those squares before. So now this time it's forming a trine, which is a more harmonious aspect. And this trine is quite interesting because it's Venus with Neptune in Pisces, and Venus is exalted in Pisces. So it's a very happy trine. But Venus being in Scorpio, it's that sign where Jupiter is just coming out of. So all those memories of those very intense things we're connected with, Venus will go there, will be receptive, and will see beauty out of this. And it will be kind of finding the pearls deep into the bottom of the sea, and finding those pearls and bring them up to the surface, and with poetry, because Neptune brings this intuition, this ability to live in poetry, especially a trine with Neptune and Venus. There's poetry there, it's obvious. So those pearls, from what we've seen, there's some beauty there that we haven't been connected with so much, because when there's a power issue, very difficult to connect with the beauty. Once we remove the power issue and we dry all this, we move away all the fog, like those squares from Sagittarius to Pisces we just talked about. As we do this work, then we'll be able to see the beauty in Scorpio. And that's the meaning of this trine. It's a little bit like a Christmas gift that is there, something very nice and sweet. This is expecting us. It's not the main aspect at all, so don't focus only on this. The main aspects of December are really those squares with Neptune. Very, very strong. So like getting rid of that fog, of all the areas that are not very sure in our mind, we're difficult to take a direction, we're not sure, etc., etc. Get rid of that, clear up everything, connect with Jupiter in Sagittarius, and also Sun in Sagittarius. Sun will still be in Sagittarius for a while in December, for a good while actually. And so connect with all those Sagittarian energies and clear up all this fog. That's the main work. But there's also that little gift from Venus in Scorpio with that trine with Neptune in Pisces. So thank you very much for this astrology capsule. And it's the last one of the year, so do a good work of drawing conclusions of your entire year. So with those aspects, I think it's a very good moment to do that, because as we clear the fog, it's also the time to clear the fog of this year, but in fact it's 2 years fog we're clearing. But it's really a time to draw conclusions, and anything that is not clear, it's time to get rid of it. So at least to see clearly and to use what is very useful in it. And the rest, it's time to clear it up. The moisture around it, because the moisture, the water signs are creating like extra, are actually sending us extra information. That's why we can be very intuitive with the water signs, because there's extra information everywhere, because water is giving it to us. But this time it's time to clear some of that extra information, because we need to have a clear mind in December. So time to draw conclusions, and everything that is not the conclusion, okay, fine, we dealt with it. We can let it go. You know, we can let go this moisture in the air. It's fine. It can finally leave. And because we keep the conclusions with us, so we don't need it anymore. So some memories also will be leaving us, most probably in December. Thank you very much, and see you for next year astrology capsule of January. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.